Hey everyone, welcome back to an exciting episode of Attack of Productions. Today I'm Bancroft, being joined by a whole cast of people. That includes Jimmy, Jake, and like always, Fluff.
Howdy.
What's going on, y'all?
What up, people?
And today we've decided to enter the world of PC gaming. Not just any PC game, but the simulation types. You know, we have Zoo Tycoon, we have City Skylines. But today's matchups, I just realized I mentioned one of those matchups already. Zoo Tycoon is being piloted by Jake. Wow. Jimmy, I actually don't remember what you're playing now.
I guess I'm playing Planet Coaster.
Coaster.
I was thinking like I could be City Skylines because I feel like Launch is a city girl versus like Gohan when she's like a zookeeper with the dragon.
Holy shit,
Yeah.
he is.
Yeah.
That is good.
So like I guess City Skylines because I mean City Skylines is a really good game. You should probably play it.
So with that being said, hope you all enjoyed today's contest of games and buttons. Click, they're there for a reason. All right, I'm done. Take it away, guys. Oh, Jake, you're not just playing any skillless Gohan. We've seen the launch deck that Jimmy's running. Have you changed anything yet, Jimmy, before we go over to Jake's deck?
No, I have some changes that I'm going to make, but the cards are not currently legal at our locals due to we don't have Battle Evolution boxes yet.
Fair enough.
So there's a few changes I'm going to make, but it is pretty much the exact same deck as I played in the last video.
Sounds good. Jake, please go over your deck, because we cannot see this blue-yellow card due to the glare, unfortunately, of our shop.
I'm playing blue-yellow skillless Gohan. My list is a little bit different than Paladino's, but it's definitely inspired by that gameplay type where you're abusing Aegis to power your defense so you can spend your turn tapping out for offense. There's a few cards, like we talked about last week, I'd like to add, and I think Fluff said he's going to help me get a hold of those. So hopefully in the future this list will be even more fun to pilot than it is now.
And I was blown away by Jake's list. I was really used to Bancroft's style of Gohan list because that's the only one I ever played against. And I remember it being really spammy, but it was all like just the one-drop weenies, and they did absolutely nothing. And I was expecting that, and I made some poor choices early on due to my past experiences with the deck. And then Jake just started dugging with some like crazy shit, and I had to really change my play style just to be able to deal with it. This was a really interesting match, and I was so confused and blown away by how well the deck worked throughout the entire matchup.
And there's a lot of nuance in this matchup as well, but go ahead, Flo.
It's, we're seeing two types of our rival decks. There's one that's really defensive and resilient, and then you've got one that attempts to solve problems. So I'm really interested to see how this match works out overall, just because of those differences.
And early on, make some really poor choices due to not the absolute worst hand I've ever had, but it was not the greatest. Which Launch does have the draw power to be able to fix a bad hand pretty quickly, but my draws were just not great early on, and I was just basically flying by on the decent one-drop cards on my hand to try to fix that. And my energy charge was unfortunate because I wanted to be able to put a different red-blue and then be able to put a untapped Mecha Frieza. But that put me in a position where I had to eventually charge another energy exhaust, or I just had to keep charging monocolor for the rest of the game just to be able to keep up with Jake's energy. Which was really, really rough for Launch.
Yeah, especially once I establish Bojack, I have access to so much extra energy that it makes up for playing the tapped energy on turn one. And if my opponent's deck is also multicolor, I just get even more advantage once Bojack is live.
Mm-hmm. And this is where you started like really throwing me for a loop because, like I said, I was so used to Bancroft's style of the deck, which was not exactly slow, but it was more of a slow burn than what you have built. So I was asking what that card did, and I'm like, that card is really good for 1 energy, you know? Like, what the hell's going on?
It requires a little bit of setup, but notice on my previous turn, I didn't swing with the 1-drops. On the off chance you had the Beer Super combo and a Cooler, you would have just got an insane amount of value if I kept attacking. Mm-hmm. So leaving them in active mode freed me up to just go into this higher dragon and poke at your life total. And 25,000 is huge against launch. Like, 25k dual attack is big, but against most leaders, it's not a huge deal. But in this matchup in particular, this higher dragon puts in a ton of work.
Mm-hmm. And normally, I like to play my arrivals on my opponent's turn, and not so much on my turn. So this was another matchup where when you put those like little weenies out, there was other threats that I wanted to deal with, but you were just going ahead and evolving them and never even swinging with them or putting me in a position where I can get rid of them on your turn at least. So
yeah, I had played against you. Sorry, go ahead.
Looking back on it, I probably could have played it a lot better on playing my rivals on my turn to clear your pieces off the board. And I will definitely take note of that in the future. But like this matchup just threw me for a loop early on. Like I just could not figure out what you were going to do. Right, here's a great example. Like I've seen that card before. I know what it does, but I was still confused. I'm like, what the hell are you doing, bro? Like, why are you not swinging with the weenies? You can still deal damage. You don't even have to combo. Like, throw me a bone, please.
I've played against your launch list enough to know that I'm going to get blown out by Cooler if I try that.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, I had a quick question. Last week, you borrowed these 3 Icaruses from me.
Right.
You completely forgot to bring this up to me, and I only even brought them. How did it feel not having them? Like, did it still feel the same? Did you wish you had them instead?
So this 6-drop higher dragon is actually the one that Jimmy was just complaining about, is actually the card I play in place of those Icaruses that I borrowed from you last week.
Okay.
Black Mass Saiyan so prevalent in the meta right now, that Icarus is just a dead card. And I would much rather be able to evolve my weenies into a threat for 1 energy than use that Icarus ability, because it's only live during your opponent's turn, so there's really no way for you to shotgun it out before they can establish a Black Mass Saiyan. So with the number of Black Mass Saiyans just at our locals and in the meta in general, it's just a dead card in the list, and frankly was part of the source of my frustration last weekend with this list.
Gotcha.
Yep. So in part of playing in this matchup, I was so flustered on trying to figure out how to solve the puzzle of Jake's deck, because I had never seen a yellow Gohan list operate like his. That I started making some really poor choices. I think charging that Senzu Bean was one of the big ones. And Senzu Bean does bite me in the ass but later on as well. But I probably should have just sacrificed another card in my hand to keep Senzu Bean, and even if it had to be an energy exhaust, it was fine. But like playing against a deck that you are so certain that you know what to do going into it, and then they just swerve on you, is like one of the most crushing feelings as a player. Because you have to change every plan you had throughout the entire like build up to that match.
Oh yeah, adjusting on the fly is difficult in best of 1 as well, because you don't have access to a sideboard.
Mm-hmm.
I think that says a lot about how tilted this got you in that match, because I rarely see Jimmy get kind of tilted, and Jake and I have used that term before, but just, making bad decisions is not something that you as a player frequently do. Like, you're usually pretty calculated. And so I think it's just really interesting to see how you're managing and working through that tilted mindset from being completely caught off guard by what the opponent's deck is trying to do.
And I think even Jake caught on to my body language. Like right there, you seen I was picking the paint off of my nails. like I was trying to figure out what was going on with his list. And, I'm familiar with the Bardock Ape. I knew that really wasn't going to be a major threat to me because I had ways of dealing with it. But everything going on around it was also a threat. So, like, it amplified every issue or every problem that I had once you put that ape on field.
Oh yeah, and it's just such a solid card. Like ever since it came out, it has been a yellow staple, and I feel like people are going to be hard pressed to find a better option. And with Aegis restanding 2 of your energy and the ape costing 2, it's just a perfect fit for this Gohan spam strategy.
Yeah, I know Bardock's fallen out of favor since like Broly Apes meta, but like it's such a fantastic card.
I had felt for a long time that it was falling out of favor, probably around the Unison Warriors, like Rise of the Unison Warriors set 10. I felt like it was kind of falling out of favor by comparison, but it has really shot back up in utility and proven its place in the meta. Mm-hmm. Oh, like really since set 12 came out, in my eyes anyway. Like,
yeah, the 2 most recent sets have both increased the value. The value of cards like Black Mass Saiyan that we talked about before, and Ape is a good way for yellow to get around that card because it'll put it in rest mode so you can swing on it, and you don't have to discard when you play it. You get to draw a card, which might replenish some of the resources that Black Mask has cost you.
So, and, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jake, but I would like to point out there that was my downfall, was that one Senzu beam. Because if you're not familiar with the launch cards, your leader card has to be 10k or less for you to activate them. And that beam put me in a really bad position. Specifically due to the 1-drop launch in the drop area, because your leader card has to be 5k to be able to combo with it. So if I had one in the hand, it would have been a different story, but having it in the drop area just absolutely screwed me. And then you come out with that cooler, which was... I hate counters with a passion. So that annoyed the shit out of me.
Bancroft and I had talked about this cooler last weekend after I played this deck, and we both decided it was absolutely necessary, and it was huge for me all night. I think, honestly, it probably won me 2 of my 3 games during this locals.
It was actually, in the last round, I walked over, I'm like, why is this in your energy?
It's just such a... Battering Laser was a major problem, and then they printed this, and it made it a lot more manageable because you did have to put such an energy investment into it. But with how energy efficient yellow decks have gotten, being able to just cooler is not that big of a deal. Like it's such a good card.
Especially relying on Aegis, which allows you to retain your own energy.
Of course.
Now, great. That's your defensive step. Now I think about it. Sorry. Well, yeah, no.
I mean,
you can tap out, and then once you tap out, you're okay with going into your opponent's turn. They swing, you're like, cool, and then Aegis.
Yeah, cooler's just deadly in this list.
It can turn even like the Bardock Ape into a major finisher. You pay 2 energy for Bardock Ape on like a leader swing, then you swing Bardock Ape and then cooler right after it. That's a 5 energy finisher that's on par with a lot of other yellow finishers in the game. It could basically turn any of your double strikers or big swinging targets into a easy win.
And it is an incredibly inexpensive card. These coolers can be had for 15 or 16 cents on TCG Player.
The coolers are honestly, they're almost indispensable in yellow lists. Like, I was playing Sen Shenron this week, and cooler was one of those cards that I just went back and forth on because I really wanted to run it at like a 1 of. And I ultimately decided to cut it, but I'm still always having that kind of internal struggle. should I or should I not? And for good reason. I mean, like Jake said, it practically won you 2 of your 3 games on Saturday. And that just speaks to how good that card actually is without being a broken, overbalanced card.
Yep. I mean, even there, like, for 3 energy, he was able to, get the Violent Rays out of my hand and put me in kill range at that point, because I had to spend my, my red energy to be able to play it, and I had only 1 blue energy left open. So, like, that card devastated this turn. And even what is it if you get a draw on it, and if you have, is it 6 or more cards in rest mode, you get an additional draw?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he replaces himself in addition to boarding a 15k for 3 energy, and the counter, of course.
It's just absurdly powerful. Like, I'm happy to see we're getting more counter interaction in the newer sets, but I'm scared of that. I feel like it's a very slippery slope.
I think as long as we are avoiding readily accessible 1 or 2 energy counters, I don't think it's a problem. Or if the counter has a special requirement that the player would have to meet, because then it just increases the skill level of the game, as opposed to making it a sacky finish in a game. Whereas the problem with Bad Ring Laser was you just needed an open energy and a yellow card in hand to discard off of it, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that's it.
And it was so uninteractable. But Bad Ring Laser, if you took the same concept of Bad Ring Laser and put a only activatable with a Freeze's army, or in battles involving a Freeze's army or something like that, it would balance the overall aesthetic of that card and would keep it from being abused with stuff like Mira. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people are concerned about Mira coming back, especially when you look at Russell Seltzer's
Russell?
It wasn't Marcel Russell, but he played Baby, and he ran counter apes with Mira and Champa.
Yeah,
in a blue list.
Still disgusting.
But you have to either hard cast a unison with 5 markers or play around your opponent, trying to keep your opponent off of 5.
So at this point in the game, I'm looking at his field, and I have the monster of Senshin on the secret rare to get over, and I'm still having to figure out how I'm going to survive the next turn. And you can see a couple cards in my hand. You see I have an exploiting weakness in hand, and I'm like, this has to be my scapegoat. Like, this has to be the card for to get me out of this situation. And whether or not the way I use it is the best way, it was really the only way in my head that I was like, yeah, I'm either gonna put this on the field and win, or I'm gonna put it on the field and lose. And which turn I do that on is not going to matter. So right here, you put the ape out, and I say I got a response, exploiting weakness. It clears a good majority of your cards, but then it puts me in a position where I had only 1 blue energy open, which is not the worst position to be in, but there's certainly better positions I could be in.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, if that Senzu being in your energy was a different blue card, you could have extended your plays here and possibly killed me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I went ahead and popped it on my turn, because all you had to do on your turn was just swing with a double striker and combo out, and I was pretty much dead. I did have a ton of 1 cost 10Ks in hand, which was the major issue. But I was debating in my head, is he just going to pass and then swing? or is he actually going to try to play cards beforehand so I can proc Vegeta's skill, the counterplay? And I don't know if in the other situation you wouldn't have played the 1-drop higher dragon. I guess that's up in the air. So I feel like you had lethal on board. You really didn't have to play anything else.
Yeah, especially with all that open energy, chances are I would have swung with what I had before I tried to play new stuff.
Yeah. And I had arrivals. I could kill out some cards, and, you know, I threw the Kai out there. There's no reason not to. Like, what am I going to do? Combo with, you know, a 1-cost 10k just to die on the next attack?
Here, you're just explaining to me what it does.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I think you're illustrating a really good point here. You and I have like really gone hard on blue recently, and you can see here kind of going in for game and winning there. But you and I have gone back and forth about Senzu Bean as far as like, does this deck need it? Does this deck need it? Mm-hmm. And my general, every time I build a deck that runs some form of blue and I don't include Senzu Bean, I immediately in the first game I play wish I had Senzu Bean. And in the same breath, if you charge Senzu Bean, you immediately regret having charged it because it could have extended your play to finish the game out. And like this game just perfectly illustrated that Jake's deck is so energy efficient and really forces you to waste more energy than you otherwise would need to. And like kudos to him for perfectly taking advantage of that situation.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. And I feel like if eventually we'll, you know, find ourselves in a rematch, and I think I'll be much better prepared, but I still think that is going to be a hard matchup for Launch to overcome, just due to how energy efficient it is, because the thing that makes Launch so good is that it's energy efficient and can take away all of the stuff that your opponent's energy has put on the field. And when Jake can just tap one to put a big body threat on field, you know, me spending 2 energy and a couple cards out of my hand to a rival, it all of a sudden becomes the inefficient part, or inefficient response.
Right, right. What was previously advantageous to you is now disadvantageous. And also, every single skill list I put on the board is a threat. Mm-hmm. As where in other decks, once you're awakened, you're safe from the spammy 1-drops.
Yeah. And Senzu Bean can relieve that, but then it turns off all of my flip cards.
So it puts you to awkward position.
Yeah. So at that point, do I use the Senzu Bean to protect myself, or do I not use the Senzu Bean so I can keep my draw engine alive?
I think you advantage the draw engine and then put your Senzu Bean on there. So you get the draw flip once per turn on each side, right? Or you get the draw and flip on one side, and then you can get the draw off the other side. So do those, then advantage your Senzu Bean.
Yeah.
The
only issue with situations like that is sometimes I must tap out to be able to get the full advantage off of my flips with Arrival and stuff of that nature. So I do think this will be a much more interesting matchup next time we meet. But I was completely flustered and thrown off by how quickly that deck, you know, was able to pop off.
And with that being said, thank y'all for tuning in. It looks like Zoom Tycoon took the victory. And let's go into a round of final words. Jimmy?
I have nothing to say except that, you know, the Planet Zoo part of the Planet Coaster series is a better version of Zoo Tycoon. You should probably play that one over the other one. No disrespect to Jake, even though I'm really upset with him, because I do have to repaint my nails now after I chipped off so much paint.
Sorry,
that's all I have to say.
Jake?
If you want to win, you have to practice, and I guess Jimmy's going to have to practice painting his nails.
Fluff, would you lead us out?
Of course. Jimmy's homework this week is learning when Senzu Bean is a good exchange in regard for draws. Like always, read your cards, know your plays. Fluff out.